Captain Lee Sang-ho stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching the stars through the main viewing screen. The ship moved slowly through empty space, far from Earth and any other human world. They had been mapping this area for 3 weeks now, looking for new planets and resources. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. The Defiant was not a big ship. She carried only 90 crew members and was built for exploring, not fighting. Her weapons were basic defense systems, nothing more. Most of the time, they never needed to use them at all. "Captain," called Lieutenant Commander Yoon Ji-soo from her station. "I'm getting some strange readings on long-range sensors." Sang-ho walked over to look at her screen. Ji-soo was their best communications officer. If she said something was strange, it usually was. "What kind of readings?" he asked. "Energy signatures, sir. Very large ones. They're moving this way from outside the galaxy." Commander Park Hye-jin looked up from her tactical station. She was Sang-ho's second-in-command and had been with him for 5 years. "Could be natural phenomena," she said. "Space storms, maybe." Chief Engineer Kim Dong-woo's voice came over the intercom from the engine room. "Captain, I'm seeing power fluctuations in the quantum field readings. Something big is coming through hyperspace." Sang-ho felt a cold feeling in his stomach. In 20 years of space service, he had learned to trust his instincts. Right now, they were telling him that whatever was coming was not friendly. "All stop," he ordered. "Ji-soo, try to get a better reading on those signatures." The Defiant slowed to a halt. The crew worked quietly at their stations, but Sang-ho could feel the tension in the air. Everyone knew that they were alone out here. The nearest human base was 6 weeks away at maximum speed. "Sir," Ji-soo said, her voice tight, "I'm reading 20 contacts. They're huge, Captain. Each one is at least 10 times bigger than us." Before Sang-ho could respond, space in front of them began to glow. Bright lights appeared, growing larger and brighter. Then the ships came through. They were like nothing Sang-ho had ever seen. Each vessel was massive, black and silver, with strange curved lines that hurt to look at. They moved with perfect formation like a school of deadly fish. The largest ship was in the center, bigger than a space station. "My God," whispered Dr. Choi Min-ho from the science station. "Those ships, they're not human design. They're not like anything in our databases." The alien fleet stopped just a few thousand kilometers away. This close, the Defiant looked like a small bug next to a pack of wolves. "Incoming transmission," Ji-soo reported. It's in perfect human language." "Put it on screen," Sang-ho ordered. The main viewer changed to show the interior of the alien flagship. The being that appeared was tall, much taller than any human. Its skin looked like it was made of crystal, reflecting light in rainbow patterns. Its eyes were black and cold. "I am War Marshal Vex Thari of the Kalani Empire," the creature said. Its voice was deep and seemed to echo. "You are humans from the small world called Earth." Sang-ho stepped forward. "I am Captain Lee Sang-ho of the United Earth ship Defiant. This is human space." The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. "Human space? Little creature, you do not understand. The Kalani Empire has conquered 700 worlds across 3 galaxies. Your species has exactly 3 of your solar cycles to surrender all human colonies to our rule." "And if we refuse?" Sang-ho asked, though he already knew he would not like the answer. "Then we will destroy every human world and kill every human being. You will be removed from existence as if you never were." Lieutenant Kang So-young, their weapons officer, looked at Sang-ho with wide eyes. She was young, and this was her first deep space mission. Her hands moved to her control panel, but Sang-ho shook his head slightly. "Not yet." "To show you our power," Vex Thari continued, "watch." On the screen, they could see the alien flagship, turning toward a nearby planet. It was a dead rock with no life, but it was still a whole world. A bright beam of energy shot from the front of the ship. When it hit the planet, the entire world exploded into pieces. Where there had been a planet, now there was only floating rocks and dust. The crew of the Defiant watched in shocked silence. The aliens had just destroyed a whole planet like it was nothing. "Impressive, is it not?" Vexathari said. "Your little ship would not even leave dust behind. Now will you carry our message to your leaders?" Captain Sang-Ho looked at his crew. He saw fear in their eyes, but also something else. He saw the same thing he felt in his own heart: anger. These creatures thought they could come to human space and make threats. They thought humans would just bow down and surrender. "No," Sang-Ho said clearly. Vexathari's crystal face showed surprise. "What did you say?" "I said no. Humans don't bow to bullies. We don't surrender to tyrants. And we sure as hell don't give up without a fight." The alien war marshal stared at him for a long moment. Then that sound like laughter came again. "You are either very brave or very stupid, little human. Perhaps both. Very well, I will destroy your ship now. Let this be a lesson to your species about the price of defying the Kolani Empire." The transmission ended. Immediately, alarms began sounding all over the Defiant. "They're charging weapons," Hyejin called out. "Multiple targets locked on us." "Shields up," Sang-Ho ordered. "All power to defense," Dongwu's voice came from the engine room. "Captain, I'm putting everything we have into the experimental quantum shielding. It's never been tested in real combat." "Do it!" Sang-Ho shouted. The alien ships fired. Beams of energy that had destroyed a planet struck the small human ship. The Defiant shook and the lights flickered, but she held together. Then something amazing happened. The quantum shields didn't just stop the attack. They somehow sent the energy back at the alien ships. Two of the smaller vessels were hit by their own weapons and began spinning out of control, trailing smoke and sparks. On the bridge of the Defiant, everyone stared in shock. They had not only survived an attack that could destroy worlds, but they had actually hurt the attackers. Vexathari's face appeared on screen again, and for the first time, the alien looked uncertain. "What? How did you do that?" Sang-Ho smiled grimly. "You want to know the secret of humanity? We're too stupid to know when we're beaten." The alien fleet began to pull back, but Vexathari's voice carried clearly across space. "This is not over, human. I will return with the full might of the Kolani Armada. Your ship will be crushed and your species will learn what happens to those who defy the Empire." As the alien ships jumped away into hyperspace, the crew of the Defiant looked at each other in amazement. They were still alive. Against all odds, their small ship had faced the mighty Kolani Empire and lived to tell about it. But Sang-Ho knew this was just the beginning. The aliens would be back, and next time they would bring more ships. The question was, what could one small human vessel do against an empire that had conquered hundreds of worlds? He looked around at his crew and saw the answer in their faces. They would find a way. They always did. That was what humans were good at. The war had begun. The meeting in the Defiant's main conference room was tense. Captain Sang-Ho sat at the head of the table while his senior officers argued about what to do next. "We should head back to Earth immediately," Dr. Choi Min-ho said. He was a careful man who always thought about safety first. "We need to warn Earth Command about the Kolani threat." Commander Park Hyejin shook her head. "By the time we get back and they organize a defense fleet, it will be too late. These aliens move fast and hit hard." Chief Engineer Kim Dong-woo was excited, almost bouncing in his chair. "Did you see what our quantum shields did to their ships? I think I know why it worked. Their energy weapons use very simple frequency patterns. It's like they never expected anyone to defend against them." Lieutenant Commander Yoon Ji-soo looked worried. "I've been listening to their communications. They're calling for reinforcements. Something called the Iron Fleet is coming this way." "How long do we have?" Sang-Ho asked. "Maybe 2 weeks, sir. The transmissions are in their language, but I'm starting to understand some of it." Lieutenant Kang So-young, the young weapons officer, spoke up. "Captain, what if we don't run? What if we stay and fight?" Everyone looked at her like she had lost her mind. Dr. Min-ho shook his head. So young, they have ships that can destroy planets. We're just one small exploration vessel. But Captain Sang-ho was thinking. He had fought in the border wars against pirates when he was younger. Back then, human forces were always outnumbered and outgunned. They had learned to win by being smarter, faster, and more willing to take risks than their enemies. "What exactly are you suggesting, Lieutenant?" he asked So Young. The young woman took a deep breath. "Guerrilla warfare, sir. Hit-and-run attacks. We use our speed and their overconfidence against them." Hyojin leaned forward. "It's crazy enough that it might work. Our ship is much smaller and faster than theirs. We could strike at isolated targets and disappear before they can respond." Dongwu nodded eagerly. "I can modify our systems using the wreckage from those 2 ships we damaged. Maybe figure out more weaknesses in their technology." Sang-ho looked around the table. These people trusted him to make the right choice. Going back to Earth was the safe option, but it probably wouldn't save anyone. Staying to fight was dangerous, but it might buy time for Earth to prepare defenses. "All right," he said finally. "We stay. But if we're going to do this, we do it smart. Dongwu, I want you to study everything we can learn about their technology. Jisoo, keep monitoring their communications. Heejin, start working on new tactics. Minho, I need you to analyze any biological samples we can get from their damaged ships." Over the next few days, the Defiant became a hive of activity. Dongwu led teams to salvage parts from the 2 damaged Kalani ships that were still drifting nearby. The alien technology was strange, but not impossible to understand. "Their energy weapons are incredibly powerful," Dongwu explained to the captain, "but they're also very predictable. They use the same frequency patterns for everything. It's like they built their whole military around one basic design and never changed it." "Why would they do that?" Sang-ho asked. "Because it worked," Hyejin said. "Think about it. They've conquered hundreds of worlds without anyone ever putting up real resistance. Why change something that always wins?" Dr. Minho made an interesting discovery while examining alien tissue samples. "Their crystal skin isn't just armor," he told the others. "It's actually a living organism that bonds with their natural biology. But it has a weakness. Certain electromagnetic frequencies can disrupt the bonding process." "What does that mean?" So Young asked. "It means their greatest strength might also be their greatest weakness," Minho replied. "If we can hit them with the right kind of energy, their armor becomes brittle instead of strong." Jisoo had been working day and night to decode Kalani communications. She burst into the conference room with exciting news. "I've broken part of their communication code," she announced. "The reinforcement fleet is commanded by someone called Supreme Admiral Kolthanor. According to their messages, he's never lost a battle in 50 years of service." "How many ships is he bringing?" Sang-ho asked. "At least 200, sir. Maybe more." The room fell silent. 200 ships against 1. Even with their new knowledge of Kalani weaknesses, those were terrible odds. But Sang-ho was already forming a plan. "We have almost 2 weeks before they arrive. That's enough time to hit some of their patrol ships. We need to test our theories and learn as much as we can." Their first target was a lone Kalani cruiser conducting scans of a nearby star system. The Defiant approached carefully, using an asteroid field for cover. "Remember," Sang-ho told his crew, "we hit fast and hard. Then get out. Don't try to destroy them completely. We just want to hurt them and escape." So Young had modified their weapons based on Dongwu's research. Instead of trying to punch through the alien shields with brute force, the new weapons disrupted the shield harmonics, causing them to collapse. The attack was perfect. The Defiant swooped out of the asteroid field, fired a concentrated burst at the cruiser's shield generators, and disappeared back into the rocks before the aliens could respond. The Kalani ship was left drifting with no shields and damaged engines. "You see how long it took them to react?" Hyejin said excitedly. "They weren't expecting an attack at all. They're so used to being the hunters that they don't know how to be the prey." Over the next week, they struck 3 more patrol ships. Each attack taught them something new about colony weaknesses. The aliens were powerful but predictable. They followed standard procedures and rarely adapted their tactics. More importantly, word of the attacks was spreading through the colony fleet. Jisoo intercepted increasingly frantic communications as the aliens tried to figure out how one small human ship was repeatedly striking their forces. "They're getting angry," Jisoo reported. "War Marshal Vexathari is demanding permission to hunt us down personally." "Good," Sang-ho said. "Angry enemies make mistakes." Dr. Minho had been studying more alien biological samples. "I think I understand why they're so rigid in their thinking," he said. "Their society is based on absolute hierarchy. Lower ranks never question orders from higher ranks. It makes them very efficient, but also very inflexible. So if we can confuse their command structure," Haijin began. "They'll have trouble adapting," Sang-ho finished. "Perfect. Their biggest test came when they encountered a small colony squadron of 4 ships. Instead of running, Sang-ho decided to try something bold. "All power to engines," he ordered. "We're going straight at them." The colony ships moved to intercept, expecting the human vessel to turn and run at the last moment. Instead, the Defiant used its superior maneuverability to slip between 2 of the alien ships, firing at point-blank range as it passed. The modified weapons caused one alien ship to lose all power. The Defiant was already accelerating away before the other ships could turn to pursue. "That was insane," Dongwu said, but he was grinning. "That was human," Sang-ho replied. As the day approached when Admiral Kolthanor's fleet would arrive, the crew of the Defiant had become confident in their abilities. They had struck 8 colony ships without taking any serious damage. Their hit-and-run tactics were working, but Sang-ho knew that everything was about to change. Kolthanor was not like the other colony commanders. According to intercepted communications, he was intelligent, experienced, and careful. He wouldn't make the same mistakes as his subordinates. "Admiral Kolthanor's fleet will arrive tomorrow," Jisoo announced during their final briefing. Sang-ho looked at his officers. They had come so far in just 2 weeks. A crew of explorers had become guerrilla fighters. A small science ship had become the first human vessel to successfully fight the Colony Empire. "Whatever happens next," he told them, "remember that we've already proven something important. The Colony can be hurt. They can be beaten. We've shown the galaxy that these so-called titans can bleed." Outside the conference room window, stars shone in the darkness. Somewhere among them, a massive alien fleet was approaching. The real test was about to begin. The Defiant was ready. Supreme Admiral Kolthanor studied the tactical display in his flagship's command center. 200 ships of the Colony Iron Fleet surrounded him, each one a masterpiece of alien engineering. He should have been confident. Instead, he was troubled. "Explain to me again how one small ship has destroyed 8 of our vessels," he said to War Marshal Vexathari. Vexathari's crystal face showed embarrassment. "The humans use coward tactics, Admiral. They strike and run like insects. They have no honor in battle." Kolthanor turned his black eyes on the War Marshal. Unlike other Colony, the Admiral had learned to think beyond simple concepts of honor and tradition. That was why he had never lost a battle. "Honor does not matter if you are dead," he said coldly. "Show me the attack patterns." The holographic display showed the positions where human attacks had occurred. Kolthanor studied them carefully. There was a pattern here, but it was unlike anything in Colony military doctrine. They are not random strikes, he realized. The humans are learning. Each attack teaches them more about our weaknesses. "Impossible," Vexathari protested. "They are an inferior species. How can they learn faster than the mighty Colony?" Kolthanor did not answer. He was beginning to understand that these humans might be more dangerous than anyone had realized. Meanwhile, on the Defiant, Captain Sang-ho was planning their survival. The arrival of Kolthanor's massive fleet had changed everything. Hit-and-run tactics had worked against overconfident patrol commanders, but this enemy would be different. "The Admiral is spreading his ships in a search pattern," Commander Hae-jin reported. "He's not rushing in like the others did. He's being methodical." Chief Engineer Dong-woo looked worried. "Captain, I've been pushing our systems beyond their limits. The quantum drive is holding together, but barely. One more major battle and we might lose power completely. Then we better make sure we don't get caught in a major battle," Sang-ho replied. Lieutenant Commander Jisoo had been monitoring Kalani communications. "Sir, I'm hearing something interesting. The Admiral is asking detailed questions about our attack methods. He wants to understand how we think." Dr. Minho looked up from his science station. "That's actually very troubling. Most Kalani commanders rely on brute force. If this one is trying to understand human psychology, he's much more dangerous." Sang-ho nodded grimly. "Then we need to give him something to think about. Dong-woo, is that pocket dimension theory of yours ready to test?" The engineer's eyes lit up. "It's crazy and dangerous, but yes, we can use the quantum drive to create small tears in space-time. We could appear and disappear in ways that seem impossible." "Do it." Their first test came when a squadron of 12 Kalani ships cornered them near a gas giant. The alien vessels moved to surround the Defiant, cutting off all escape routes. "Now, Dong-woo!" Sang-ho shouted. The engineer activated his experimental system. Reality seemed to bend around the Defiant. One moment they were trapped in the center of the alien formation. The next they were behind the enemy ships, firing at their unprotected rear. The Kalani captains were so shocked that they fired on each other in their confusion. 2 ships were damaged by friendly fire before they realized what had happened. By then, the Defiant was already gone, having slipped through another pocket dimension to safety. Kolthanor received the reports with growing concern. The humans had somehow moved through solid matter. They had appeared in impossible locations. Either they had technology far beyond what anyone had believed, or they were doing something completely outside normal physics. "Find me everything about human science," he ordered his staff. "I want to know how they think, how they solve problems, how they approach warfare." The research that came back disturbed him. Human history was full of weaker forces defeating stronger ones through creativity and determination. They had a concept called thinking outside the box that seemed to define their approach to problems. "They do not follow rules," he told Vexathari. "Other species learn our tactics and try to copy them. Humans learn our tactics and then do something completely different." "They are just lucky," Vexathari insisted. "Luck does not destroy 8 ships," Kolthanor replied. The Defiant's next strike was even bolder. They hid inside the corona of a star, using the intense radiation to mask their presence. When a Kalani heavy cruiser came close to investigate, they burst out of the stellar fire like an ancient dragon. The alien ship's sensors were overloaded by the star's energy. They never saw the attack coming. The Defiant's modified weapons, fired at point-blank range, crippled the cruiser's engines and left it drifting helplessly. "How are they surviving inside a star?" Kolthanor demanded. His science officer consulted the data nervously. "Their ship appears to be using some kind of quantum shielding that we don't understand. It should be impossible." "Stop saying impossible," the Admiral snapped. "They have done it 6 times now. Find out how." But the Defiant wasn't finished. Their most daring attack came when they detected Kolthanor's flagship isolated from the main fleet, conducting tactical planning sessions. "We're going to attack the Admiral directly," Sang-ho announced to his crew. "Sir," Dr. Minho protested, "that ship is 5 times bigger than anything we've faced. The risk is exactly why they won't expect it," Sang-ho finished. Lieutenant So Young had been working with Dong-woo to create new weapon configurations. "Captain, we could try a phase shift attack. Instead of fighting through their shields, we slip inside them." "Inside their ship?" Hae-jin asked, amazed. "Just for a few seconds," Dong-woo explained. "Long enough to fire at their internal systems before shifting back out. It was insane. It was also exactly the kind of thing humans were known for, the attack. happened during the Kalani night shift when many of the crew would be resting. The Defiant approached the massive flagship using the gravity shadow of a nearby moon to mask their approach. Phase shift in 3, 2, 1, Dongwu announced. Reality bent again. The Defiant passed through the flagship's hull like a ghost, appeared inside the massive ship's engine room, and fired everything they had at the power core. Then they were gone, shifting back outside before the aliens even knew what had happened. Kolthanor felt his ship shudder as explosions rocked the engine compartments. Emergency alarms screamed throughout the vessel. The mighty flagship, pride of the Kalani fleet, began to list as power systems failed. "Damage report!" he shouted. "Engine rooms 7 through 12 are destroyed," came the reply. "Power is at 60% and falling." "How did they get inside our shields?" Kolthanor stared at the tactical display showing the small human ship already kilometers away. In 50 years of military service, he had never been outmaneuvered. No enemy had ever penetrated his defenses. Yet these humans had struck at his flagship's heart and escaped without taking any damage. For the first time in his life, the Supreme Admiral felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the human ship." "Put it through." Captain Sang-ho's face appeared on the main screen. He looked calm, almost friendly. "Admiral Kolthanor, I presume? I wanted to talk to you personally." "What do you want, human?" "To give you some advice. You're trying to understand us using Kalani thinking. That won't work. We don't follow your rules because we don't know what's impossible. Sometimes not knowing the rules is an advantage." Kolthanor leaned forward. "Are you trying to surrender?" Sang-ho smiled. "No, Admiral. I'm trying to teach you something. You can't beat an enemy by using the same tactics that worked against everyone else. We're different. We think different. We fight different. Then how do I defeat you? Maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe you should ask why you want to defeat us in the first place." The transmission ended, leaving Kolthanor staring at a blank screen. Around him, his flagship struggled to maintain power while damage control teams worked frantically to repair the engines. He had brought 200 ships to crush one small human vessel. Instead, he was sitting in a crippled flagship, wondering if he understood anything about warfare at all. The humans had done more than damage his ship. They had shaken his confidence in everything he thought he knew about military strategy. For the first time in Kalani history, a Supreme Admiral was beginning to doubt the Empire's ability to win through force alone. News of the attack on Kolthanor's flagship spread through the Kalani fleet like wildfire. For the first time in their history, a Supreme Admiral had been wounded in battle. The impossible had happened, and it was shaking the very foundations of Kalani confidence. In the depths of space, far from the main battle zone, other species were watching. The bird-like Valerians had been enslaved by the Kalani for 300 years. They huddled in their crystal caves, whispering about the ghost ship that could strike at the heart of the Empire. "Is it true?" asked Velthar, an old Valerian who remembered the days before the conquest. "Has someone really hurt the Kalani?" "The stories say a single ship destroyed their flagship," replied Kessera, a young warrior who had never known freedom. "They say the humans can walk through walls and appear from nowhere." Similar conversations were happening across the galaxy. The aquatic depones in their underwater cities spoke of the small vessel that defied the Empire. The peaceful Thornkin, plant beings who had never fought anyone, began to wonder if resistance was possible. On the Defiant, the crew was exhausted but determined. Their ship was held together by repairs upon repairs. Systems that should have failed long ago were working, through sheer will and Dongwu's engineering genius. "Captain," Dr. Minho reported, "I've been analyzing the data from our attack on the flagship. I think I understand something important about the Kalani." Sang-ho looked up from the damage reports he was reading. "What did you find?" "They're not just physically powerful. Their entire civilization is built around the idea that they can't lose. When that belief is challenged, their whole system starts to break down. Commander Hyojin nodded. I've noticed it too. Their communications are getting more frantic. They're making mistakes they never made before. Lieutenant Commander Jisoo had been working day and night to monitor alien transmissions. Sir, something big is happening. Admiral Kolthanor has requested reinforcements from the Kalani homeworld. They're sending something called the World Ender. What's a World Ender? Lieutenant So-young asked. From what I can understand, Jisoo replied, it's their biggest ship. A dreadnought that can destroy entire planets with a single shot. It's commanded by Fleet Admiral Zethkalar, the highest military leader in the Empire. The conference room fell silent. They had been fighting cruisers and destroyers. Now the Empire was sending its ultimate weapon. Chief Engineer Dong Wu looked worried. Captain, our quantum drive is barely holding together. I don't think we can phase shift much longer without risking a complete breakdown. How long do we have? Sang-ho asked. Maybe one more major battle, sir. After that, we'll be fighting with conventional systems only. Sang-ho studied the faces of his crew. They had come so far, accomplished so much, but he could see the strain wearing on them. They were human, not superhuman. Everyone had limits. There's something else, Jisoo said quietly. I've been broadcasting, on open channels, sharing our discoveries about Kalani weaknesses. Other species are starting to listen. What do you mean? Hyojin asked. The Valarians attacked a Kalani mining station yesterday. The Deepones sabotaged an orbital platform. Small acts of rebellion, but they're spreading. Dr. Minho leaned forward excitedly. That's it. That's how we really win. We don't have to destroy the Kalani fleet. We just have to prove that they can be beaten. Once other species see that resistance is possible, the Empire collapses from within, Sang-ho finished. But we need to survive long enough for that to happen. Over the next few days, the Defiant began a new kind of warfare. Instead of just attacking Kalani ships, they started rescuing prisoners and freed slaves. They shared their knowledge about Kalani weaknesses with anyone who would listen. Each rescue mission was dangerous. The Defiant would phase shift into a prison ship, beam out the captives, and disappear before the guards could react. They saved Valarian pilots, Deepone technicians, and Thornkin scientists. Why are you doing this? Asked Zarthon, a Valarian captain they had rescued. Because everyone deserves to be free, Sang-ho replied. The rescued aliens spread word about the human ship throughout their underground networks. Stories grew in the telling. The ghost ship became a legend, a symbol of hope for species that had forgotten what freedom meant. Admiral Kolthanor, meanwhile, was struggling with problems he had never faced before. Rebel attacks were increasing across multiple sectors. Supply lines were being disrupted. For the first time in Kalani history, subject species were working together against their masters. How many rebellions are we dealing with? He asked his staff. At least 40 separate incidents, sir. The Valarians seem to be coordinating with the Deepones. Even the peaceful Thornkin are causing problems. Kolthanor studied the strategic display. Red markers showed locations of rebel activity. There were too many to count. It's the human ship, he realized. They're not just fighting us, they're teaching others how to fight us. When the World Ender arrived, it was like nothing anyone had ever seen. The massive dreadnought was larger than some space stations. Its weapons could crack planets. Its shields could stop entire fleets. Fleet Admiral Zethkalar was the most decorated military leader in Kalani history. He had personally conquered 17 different species. To him, the idea that one small ship could threaten the Empire was absurd. I will end this embarrassment quickly, he announced to his fleet of 500 ships. The humans will learn what happens to insects that annoy their betters. But the galaxy had changed. As news of the World Ender's arrival spread, something unprecedented happened. Instead of cowering in fear, the rebel species began to coordinate their attacks. Valerian fighters struck Kalani supply convoys. Deep-owned submarines attacked underwater bases. Thornkin plants began growing interference networks that jammed Kalani communications. Even species that had been enemies for centuries put aside their differences to fight their common oppressor. On the Defiant, Sang-Ho received a message that made him smile for the first time in weeks. "Captain," Jisoo announced, "I'm getting transmissions from rebel groups across the galaxy. They're asking for instructions. Instructions for what? A coordinated uprising. They want to strike all at once, across every Kalani-controlled sector." Hyejin looked amazed. "We've started a galactic revolution." Dr. Minho was studying biological readings from their various encounters. "Captain, I think I've figured out how to modify our quantum weapon. Instead of destroying the Kalani, we could disrupt their crystal biology temporarily, make them vulnerable without killing them." "Why would we want to do that?" So-Young asked. "Because," Sang-Ho said, understanding immediately, "dead enemies become martyrs. Humbled enemies become teachers." The final battle was approaching. The World Ender and its massive fleet were moving into position. Across the galaxy, millions of beings prepared for the largest rebellion in galactic history. But the most important battle would be fought by 90 humans in a ship that was barely holding together. They had started something that could change the galaxy forever. Now they had to survive long enough to see it through. Dongwu worked frantically to prepare their last quantum shift. Hyejin planned their most desperate gambit yet. Jisoo coordinated with rebel forces across 100 worlds, and Captain Sang-Ho prepared to face the most powerful ship in the Kalani Empire with nothing but human courage and the hope that sometimes the smallest spark could light the biggest fire. The Defiant was ready for its final mission. Fleet Admiral Zethkalar stood on the bridge of the World Ender, looking out at the largest fleet ever assembled by the Kalani Empire. 500 ships filled the space around his massive dreadnought, each one capable of destroying cities. He had come to end the human problem once and for all. "Signal all ships," he commanded. "We will demonstrate Kalani power by destroying the human vessel with a single shot from the World Ender's main weapon." The planet-killing cannon began to charge. Energy readings spiked across the fleet as the weapon prepared to fire. This was the same gun that had shattered worlds and ended entire civilizations. On the Defiant, alarms screamed warnings about the incoming energy buildup. "They're charging their main weapon," Commander Hyejin reported. "Power levels are off our charts." "Captain." Sang-Ho looked around his bridge. His crew was tired, their ship was barely holding together, but their eyes still held determination. "Dongwu, are you ready for the final phase shift?" "As ready as we'll ever be, Captain. But this is it. After this, the quantum drive will be completely burned out." "Jisoo, status on the rebellion coordination?" "All rebel forces are standing by, sir. They're waiting for our signal." "Dr. Minho, is the quantum disruption weapon ready?" "Yes, but Captain, if we use it, we'll be completely defenseless afterward. No shields, no weapons, no way to escape." Sang-Ho nodded. "Then we better make it count." The World Ender fired. A beam of energy that could crack moons streaked toward the tiny human ship. At the last possible second, Dongwu activated the phase shift. The Defiant slipped between dimensions just as the planet-killer beam passed through the space where they had been. The beam continued on, striking an empty asteroid field and vaporizing it instantly. Across the galaxy, millions of beings watched through stolen communication feeds. They saw the mighty World Ender fire its ultimate weapon at a small human ship. They saw the weapon miss completely. For the first time in galactic history, the Kalani Empire's most powerful weapon had failed to destroy its target. "Impossible!" Zethkalar roared. "Fire again!" But the Defiant was already moving. They phase-shifted through the massive Kolani formation, appearing directly behind the world ender. At point-blank range, Dr. Minho activated the quantum disruption weapon. The energy waves spread through the Kolani fleet like ripples in water. It didn't destroy their ships or kill their crews. Instead, it did something far more devastating to the Kolani mindset. It made them vulnerable. The crystal armor that covered every Kolani warrior began to crack and weaken. Their energy weapons flickered and died as the crystal matrices that powered them became unstable. For the first time in their species' history, the mighty Kolani found themselves defenseless. Admiral Kolthanor, watching from his damaged flagship, felt his own armor becoming brittle. Around him, his crew looked at each other in shock as their greatest strength crumbled away. "What have they done to us?" one of his officers whispered. At that moment, Jisoo activated the galaxy-wide communication network the rebels had been building. "This is Commander Park Hya-jin of the human ship Defiant," she broadcast across every channel, every frequency, every communication system in known space. "People of the galaxy, you have just seen the Kolani Empire's most powerful weapon fail against one small ship. You have seen their mighty warriors made vulnerable by beings they considered inferior. The transmission reached every world, every species, every enslaved population in Kolani space. For too long, you have lived in fear of those who claimed to be your betters. But there are no betters. There are only those who choose to be free, and those who choose to kneel. Today we choose freedom. Across the galaxy, the largest rebellion in galactic history began. Valerian fighters launched coordinated strikes against Kolani bases. Deep-honed submarines emerged from hidden ocean depths to attack orbital stations. Thornkin plants released spores that jammed every Kolani communication network. Even species that had been enemies for millennia joined together against their common oppressor. The bird-like Valerians fought alongside the aquatic Deepones. The plant-based Thornkin coordinated with silicon-based rock dwellers. United by their desire for freedom, they struck as one. On the world ender, Fleet Admiral Zethkalar watched his empire begin to crumble. Reports flooded in from every sector. Rebellions on 1,000 worlds. Supply lines cut. Military bases under attack. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're losing contact with entire sectors. The rebellion is spreading faster than we can respond." Zethkalar turned to look at the small human ship that had started it all. The Defiant was drifting now, its engines dark, its weapons powered down. They had used everything they had in that final attack. "Signal the human ship," he ordered. Captain Sang-ho's face appeared on the main screen. He looked exhausted, but undefeated. "You have destroyed my empire," Zethkalar said. "No," Sang-ho replied. "Your empire destroyed itself. We just showed the galaxy that it was possible to fight back. What do you want? Surrender? The destruction of all Kolani?" Sang-ho shook his head. "We want what every thinking being wants. The right to live freely, to make our own choices, to determine our own future. That includes the Kolani." Zethkalar stared at him in confusion. "You would spare us? After everything we have done?" "Revenge doesn't build a better galaxy," Sang-ho said. "Cooperation does." Admiral Kolthanor's voice cut into the transmission. "Fleet Admiral, I request permission to negotiate with the humans." Kolthanor? Zethkalar was shocked. His most trusted admiral was asking to talk to the enemy. "Sir, I've been fighting these humans for weeks. I've learned something important. They don't want to conquer us. They want to change us." On the bridge of the Defiant, the crew listened as the most powerful military leaders in the Kolani Empire debated what to do next. Some wanted to fight to the death. Others, led by Kolthanor, argued for negotiation. "The old empire is finished," Kolthanor said to his superiors. "We can try to hold it together through force, but that will only lead to more war, more death. Or we can try to build something new." Dr. Minho watched his instruments as the quantum disruption effect slowly wore off. Captain, their crystal armor is regenerating. In a few hours, they'll be just as powerful as before. But they'll never be the same, Hyejin observed. They've felt vulnerability now. They know they can be beaten. Across the galaxy, the outcome of the rebellion was already clear. Too many worlds had risen up at once. The Kalani couldn't fight everywhere at the same time. Their empire of fear was collapsing. Fleet Admiral Zeth Kalar made his decision. All Kalani forces cease fire. Stand down from combat operations. The order spread through the fleet, then across the galaxy. After centuries of oppression, the guns fell silent. Captain Sang-Ho, Zeth Kalar said, I formally request negotiations for a new galactic order. Sang-Ho smiled tiredly. We accept. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy began to change. The Kalani Empire dissolved, replaced by a confederation of free worlds. Some species chose independence. Others formed alliances based on mutual benefit rather than force. The Kalani themselves struggled to adapt to a world where they were not automatically superior. Some, like Kolthanor, embraced the change and worked to build bridges with other species. Others retreated to their homeworld, unable to accept the new reality. Captain Sang-Ho and the crew of the Defiant became heroes, but they asked for no reward except the right to return to exploration. They had never wanted to be warriors. They just wanted to be free. As the Defiant limped back toward human space for repairs, Sang-Ho stood on his bridge and looked out at the stars. The galaxy was still full of challenges, but it was also full of hope. Captain, Lieutenant So Young asked, do you think it will last, this new peace? Sang-Ho considered the question. Peace isn't something you achieve once and keep forever. It's something you have to choose every day with every decision you make. He looked around at his crew, these ordinary humans who had changed the galaxy through courage and determination. But I think we've given everyone a good place to start. The Defiant sailed on through the stars, carrying with it the proof that no empire, no matter how powerful, could stand against the simple idea that all beings deserved to be free. One small ship had brought Titans to their knees, not through superior firepower, but through the very human belief that sometimes standing up to bullies is the most important thing you can do. The galaxy would never be the same.